New question. The member from Whitby-Oshawa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Again to the Premier. Yesterday, I watched the Minister of Energy try to defend the indefensible. Rather than accept the Auditor General's indictment of his tenure as Minister of Energy, we watched the minister attack an independent and impartial officer of our legislature. He accused her of getting her facts wrong and being in over her head. His disrespect showed just how out of touch with reality this minister is. Premier, yesterday you said, and you said again today, that your government welcomes accountability. Will you live up to those words and show your energy minister the door?
Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite saw yesterday was a couple of ministers of this government making sure that people understand where we are aligned with the Auditor General and where, Mr. Speaker, there are some differences. And I think if the member opposite looks back to 2002 and some comments by a former minister of her party, she will see that there are times when ministers and governments disagree with some of the recommendations and some of the concerns of the Auditor General. That is not an unheard of circumstance, Mr. Speaker. But what the member opposite also should have heard is experts in the electricity field making it clear what smart meters are doing, Mr. Speaker, how they are helping us gather data that will allow us to conserve and will also allow us, are already allowing us to gather data on residential usage, on commercial usage, Mr. Speaker, that will allow us to conserve into the future.
The saddest part of the AG's report is the devastating human cost attached to this government's reckless management. From patients to pensioners, to families with children, to businesses and job creators, to our most vulnerable citizens.
Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
All have been failed by this government on so many fronts. Premier, it's about priorities. You don't spend $2 billion on not-so-smart meters when people nearing the end of their lives can't get the hospice and palliative care services they deserve. Right. You don't spend $2 billion on a program that doesn't work when developmentally challenged adults are in crisis and are waiting years for residential placements. Premier, when
Minister of Economic Development, come to order.
Massive human cost attached to your government's incompetence.
You know, Mr. Speaker, there's a massive human cost to us not conserving energy. There's a massive human cost to not having access to information. Anthony Haynes yesterday, the head of Toronto Hydro.
Thank you. Carry on.
Anthony Haynes yesterday, the head of Toronto Hydro, commented that during the ice storm last year, Toronto Hydro was able to identify people who were medically fragile, who were at risk because they had smart meters. They were able to identify where those people were, whether they had power, and move to address those concerns. So, Mr. Speaker, smart meters are helping us to gather data that is extremely necessary. But on the general issue of the Auditor General, Mr. Speaker, we have worked closely with her. We will continue to work closely with her. There are many, many areas of agreement where we have already started to implement the changes that she recommends, or we will do that, Mr. Speaker. There are a few areas where there are discrepancies, and we will continue to work with her.
New question. Leader of the third party.
Speaker.
Lost count. Final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, you can tell by these responses that things have to change. Yesterday's report showed a complete policy failure, a failure to respect Ontario taxpayers, and a failure to take care of our most vulnerable citizens. The callous response from the Energy Minister cannot stand. Premier, signal to Ontarians that you truly believe in accountability, that you believe in priorities, that you recognize the human cost of your policies, and fire your Energy Minister.
Be seated, please. Start the clock. Be seated, please. Thank you. Premier.
you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I reject the premise of the comment and the question, Mr. Speaker. We are working extremely hard to make sure that we do exactly that, to take the actions that we know are in the best interest of the people of this province, Mr. Speaker. As I have said, it is not unprecedented that there would be some small area of disagreement between the government and the Auditor General. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm fairly certain that in 2002, Minister Bob Runciman did not lose his job, and Minister Bob Runciman at that point said, and I quote, "The auditor's report is misleading and inaccurate." That's what the member said in 2002, Mr. Speaker. The reality is it is extremely important that when there is a disagreement or when there is alignment or agreement, we are clear about that, and we're clear about what our actions are to make sure that we conserve energy, Mr. Speaker, that we gather information about immunization, that we make sure child care is safe. All of those are the work